Casey just checked in. We're just a little short of a quorum, so we'll hold up for a couple minutes more. We now have a quorum, so thanks everyone for joining us. And Councilmember Esparza, I hope you're feeling better. I know it's been a rough week. Good to see you in better health. Okay. Tony, should we call roll?
Yes. And with our new procedure, I'm going to share screen. So Jimenez. Perales. Dieppe. Carrasco. Davis.
Here.
Esparza.
Here.
Arenas.
Here.
Foley.
Here.
Camus.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Liccardo.
Present.
I'm going to go back. Jimenez. Perales.
Here.
Dieppe. Carrasco. Okay, we have a quorum. My first interviewee, who I spoke with this morning, has not responded back. So I'm not sure if I spoke with him earlier today, but he has not signed on. I have the second person ready to go. I just need to give him the okay to sign in. The procedure is the commissioners have been asked not to watch the interviews. So I'll be texting them one person ahead. So when we start with Jorge is supposed to be the first person, I'll let Andrew know you're next. So I'm going to be communicating with them constantly through the meeting. Andrew, who is listed as second interview, is ready to go. So I can ask him to sign on right now.
Okay. And Tony, just for clarification, we have 15 applicants for 5 seats. Is that right?
That is correct.
And how many of those 5 are incumbent seats?
4 are incumbent seats, but only 2 incumbents have reapplied.
Okay. All right. So before we jump in, is everybody sort of clear about the process at this point? Any questions? Okay, so we've got a lot of interviews between today and Friday, Monday. It's good to see so much interest. And I'll note for the record, I think I see Councilmember Dieppe's image emerging. Councilmember Dieppe, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Tony. Let's.
Our first applicant is Jorge Antonio Garcia, and I just saw him pop up on the screen.
Great.
So he's ready
Mr.
to go.
Garcia? Hello, Mr. Garcia? Hello, Jorge? I believe you're still muted. There you go, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia, your mute button is not on, so you should be able to speak.
Yes.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Mr. Garcia, thank you for your interest in serving the city. We're grateful for that and for your willingness to commit to serving on the Planning Commission. What we typically do is we ask applicants to describe their interest in what they believe they can bring to the commission for a minute or two, and then we'll jump right in with questions. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you believe you'd serve this commission well in this city?
Well, a little bit about myself. I'm local to San Jose. I grew up here, spent my whole life here, educated here. I live in Southeast Evergreen. I spent my professional career in lending and real estate property management. And so I see this as an opportunity to serve the community and be able to participate in the process, because the process will happen whether I participate or not, right? So I see this as a good opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Okay, we're gonna, did you want to add anything more before we go to questions?
Go ahead.
I just didn't want to cut you off. I just want to
That's
make sure
fine.
you, okay, great. Are there any questions for Mr. Garcia? Councilmember Frost. Raul, I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, I was trying to get back to the screen. My apologies. Thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you to all the applicants and Jorge yourself as well. I will say I'd love to know a little bit more about you. I don't think we certainly have the applications and all that stuff, but it's great to be able to hear people in person. So I wanted to see if you can expand on what prompted you to apply for the Planning Commission, and then what do you think you can bring, whether it's skill sets or what strengths you think you can bring to the commission?
Thank you. So what prompted me to apply was, it was gradual over time. I gained an interest in the planning process. It was almost by accident, if you will, in the type of work that I do, whether it be in lending. Previously, it was in residential lending, and now it's in bridge commercial lending. You wind up doing a lot of research on projects and finding out where they're at in the process. And you realize there's all these layers of process before you even realize that something is going up somewhere or there's going to be changes. And I would ask myself, how is it that I've spent 25 plus years in this industry in terms of real estate and lending, and I live and work in San Jose, and I'm not aware of these projects that are happening until something spurs me to research and investigate and find out where they are in the process, right? And so it was quite eye-opening to find, to see, even though these are out in public view, the planning process and planning commission and building and community, feedback, or in some cases support or opposition. And so, I figured it made sense to become part of the process as opposed to just having it happen without any awareness, frankly.
Thank you, Mr. Councilmember, did you have anything more?
There was just a follow-up question about what strengths or what do you think you're going to be able to bring to the commission?
So what I bring to the table is experience in lending in terms of understanding guidelines, applying those guidelines to the situation that is before you. I see this in a similar capacity where you have the general plan and you have an outline of what things or the intended land use is, what the requirements are. And in this capacity, I see the opportunity to evaluate, participate in the decision process, evaluate the requests, do a lot of the vetting or legwork, if you will, before it gets to your level, and be able to add value in the sense that my background, I'm local to San Jose. I don't know. I don't believe there's existing planning commission members with my background currently on the board.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Foley?
Great, thank you. Jorge, thank you for coming and speaking with us today. We actually share a similar background. In a side business, or actually my company is Foley Mortgage, and we're still operating, although I'm less and less involved these days, which is a private money lender, much like what your company does. So I'm wondering, I know what your business is, but it might be helpful for you to share with the city council members what your role is at Redwood Mortgage and the typical loan that, or the typical property that Redwood Mortgage looks at, and why that background might be helpful to your position on Planning Commission.
So thank you, Pam. So yes, very similar products and approach to lending. Redwood Mortgage, my day job is we're a bridge lender for commercial real estate and residential investment properties. And usually the reason we come into the picture is the property that's being acquired does not qualify for bank financing. And it could be the condition of the property, it could be it's vacant, it could be that the rents are below, in retail space, the rents are outdated and would not qualify based on the debt service. So what we're able to do is we're able to provide financing, which is anywhere from 6 months to 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, and help them acquire it, help them stabilize the property or improve it, and then qualify later for a loan to replace our loan with a traditional bank or more competitive terms. So it actually serves a purpose for buildings or properties that are below what the community would like to see them at, and it helps them be profitable, or at least contribute less to blight or whatever the case.
So let me follow, thank you. Let me follow up a little bit on that. So you'll be asking to make decisions on land deals, planning deals within the city of San Jose. What percentage of your personal business is involved in the city of San Jose, and do you see that as a conflict for you?
Well, certainly there could be situations where it would present a conflict. Frankly, I cover Santa Clara County, Santa Cruz County, and so it's surprisingly enough, it's few deals that I do in San Jose, but there are deals that we do. And the volume of business that we do in this space is not the volume of business that you see in residential lending, for example. So I would say that there's the potential for a conflict of interest, few and far between.
Great, I appreciate that. Knowing your background and your business, I think you have definitely the background and skill sets that I am looking for in particular. So I look forward to hearing what other people have to say as they continue the interview with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Jorge, for your willingness to serve. I want to ask you a 30,000-foot question. What is your understanding of the role of the Planning Commission?
My understanding of the Planning Commission is to review the proposals that are submitted, work with the building department, the developer, community, and get input to ensure that it fits within the general plan. And if it's a situation where we can create a win-win-win across the board, that would be my goal, right? It shouldn't be the developer wins and the community loses, if you will. It should be a situation where we evaluate proposal, we look at ways to put it together if it could fit within the framework, and there will be collaboration and concessions involved by, or I should say compromise involved in terms of creating a solution. But it really, at the end of the day, should not be something that it's a zero-sum game. It should be where we can create solutions to benefit all. And we take those recommendations and provide them to the city council, and at the end of the day, it's we put the information on the table, right? So that's how I see it.
Thank you. My next question is, what unique skills, abilities, or perspective would you bring to the commission?
So I grew up in East San Jose. I bring a perspective that that simply doesn't exist on the board today. My parents immigrated from Mexico. I'm first generation here. I grew up in a bilingual household. I believe I've now become part of the system, right, through my education, through my professional capacity. And my goal is to be able to contribute my experiences and be able to validate some of the feedback we're getting from the community and be able to have that perspective in these planning meetings.
Thank you, Jorge, and again, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ennis.
Thank you, Mayor. So sorry about that. Hi, Jorge. Thank you so much for applying as a planning commissioner. I think we've all been experiencing and seeing what is happening with our nation and locally here with the Black Lives Movement and just recent protests. It's brought really to light a lot of system inequalities and then some of the vulnerabilities for our population because of past policies. And so as a future planning commissioner, if you were appointed, how would you ensure equity is built into some of those planning decisions that you're going to make, and be aware of how some of those underserved communities would be impacted?
So I think it goes back to validating the concerns that the community brings to the table, and bringing solutions that can benefit the impacted areas, and not have them, I shouldn't say them, but I mean, not have certain portions of the community be left behind, really. I grew up, if you spoke Spanish during the time that I was growing up and you went to church on Sunday, you went to Guadalupe Church. If you went shopping for products that included our staples, it was Cal Foods or Tropicana or Pink Elephant, right? And so a lot of those areas look not that different today than they did 30 years ago. And so the question is, why is that? I believe my perspective in my awareness of that could help those communities in terms of empathy, understanding, and commitment to achieving some of the things that they want to see and get their buy-in.
Okay, how have you used maybe equity in your as a decision-making factor? It sounds like you would look out at how our communities have been built and how they look now. Obviously, planning has a lot to do with what underserved communities have access to them. How would you say that you've used in your current work or schooling some level of experience? How have you used equity in using it as within a decision-making process? Has it been a factor in the past? Maybe you can demonstrate a decision that was based on equity.
I can't think of one that comes to mind, but what I can say is that
It could even be personal, it could be on a personal experience.
One of my strengths in dealing with let's say underserved communities in San Jose, happens to be at the time when I was in residential real estate lending. The Spanish-speaking community, they had no idea how things worked, how credit worked, or very limited, I should say, very limited exposure to qualifying guidelines, what it took to purchase a home, what type of income level you needed, credit, background verifications, things of that nature. So to be able to show them how the process works and educate them in the process it was eye-opening to them, and it generated me loyal customers, if you will. And so I see parallels in this situation where, if a community needs something or opposes something, then they need to get involved in the process and bring ideas workable ideas to help create solutions, as opposed to only voicing concerns or only voicing needs. So I think that's something that I could bring.
Great. So it sounds like finding a process to link those two things would be important for
Yes,
you.
thank you. Yes.
Finding their concerns and equity. Okay. So I know that you're a District 8 resident, and I don't know how familiar you are with some of the proposals. So it's really unfair that I'm going to ask you a very specific District 8 question, but just bear with me. There's not a lot of development in District 8, as you know. We have a development-specific plan that limits our growth. And so when there is development, it's kind of a big deal, right, in our community. And so there is a temple project on Ruby Avenue. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm sorry, Councilmember. Rick?
Yeah, council member, because planning commissioners act in a quasi judicial capacity in approving projects and permits, they really can't talk about specific projects or without creating a preconceived bias, and then they'd have to disqualify themselves. So it's perfectly fine to talk about general issues like types of general plan and concerns about density and things like that, but focusing on a specific project is a problem.
Okay, no worries. I apologize if I was towing the line there. So let me just reframe my question. I know that there's districts that have development policies. Ours is meant to constrain our growth, and in District 4, that development policy is meant to allow for growth to happen. And so when we're dealing with the need for housing, how do you see yourself dealing with maybe some of the overcrowding issues that we see in our residential areas?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? So that's that's the challenge, I think, that we all are trying to figure out the solution to, right? The ratio of jobs to housing, having more housing than jobs, yet we still have a housing shortage. Bringing the the jobs and the housing together in urban villages. Um, how do we solve these problems? You know, I don't claim to be an expert, but certainly I can contribute my experiences and my viewpoint in the process, and you know, and try to find solutions. I really don't have the answer to that, but I look forward to collaborating and finding solutions that improve the ratios that we have today.
That's absolutely fair. I don't know that any one of us here on council have the solution. Otherwise, you know, we would be in a different position. I appreciate your application, and I wish you luck. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Esparza?
Thank you, Mayor. Jorge, thanks for applying. And I wanted to ask your thoughts on affordable housing.
My thoughts on affordable housing? Is there a second part to that question, or is it just my thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really trying to get your thoughts on affordable housing policies, and just as a planning commissioner, you'd be reviewing a wide variety of things, and I'm interested in your thoughts on affordable housing policies in the city of San Jose, or in general in the Bay Area.
Well, I think they're good. I mean, I think that they are necessary. I think the cost of housing here is well, I don't think it has grown faster than incomes have grown. I have seen the benefits of of low income housing directly in my professional capacity. I've been involved in a party to Section 8, you know, through the county, had tenants, long-term tenants that were good tenants, had some bad tenants as well, just like non-Section 8, you know. So I mean, it does serve a benefit. It is a value. It is necessary, and it's you know, I think that those programs will continue to grow through funding.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia, again, I really appreciate your willingness to serve, given all your skills and your experience here in the city. I just had a couple quick questions. One is, what, as you think about whatever problems exist in the city, and every big city's got them, what problems do you think you'll be able to address through your role at the Planning Commission?
Well, certainly, I would be able to address the issue of help maybe improve the issue of process. I think there's a lot of I think the Planning Commission can accelerate some of their.
Are you saying we can be slow sometimes at the city?
Yes.
Yes, understood.
I'm sorry. I was trying to be very, you know.
I know you don't have to. We hear it.
Yeah.
You're not the first person to say it.
Yeah. So that, you know, that's that. I also, you know, I wanted to add something that when Pam was asking questions about my experience, and then a previous question regarding conflict of interest, I actually, in my role, my originations are limited. I'm actually more out in the community, whether it be in mentor roles, or whether it be an exchange of ideas. For example, you know, through the Silicon Valley Business Journal, through Rent TV events, not only here in San Jose, but in East Bay and in San Francisco. And so, you know, you get to, through my employment, I get to hear a lot of developers and planners and building departments and hear the success stories that they've been able to create. And I could, you know, and you gather that information, you bring it to the table here in San Jose, right? In some cases, you know, it's happening. In other cases, it's not happening as quickly as it is in other areas. It may be because other areas have more room to grow, and we don't. But I think those successes that other municipalities in the Bay Area have had, you know, as well as us, I can bring those ideas as well. So.
Thank you. The last question I have is, you know, there being situations where general plan's going to say one thing, you think the land use should be different, something else. So the applicant comes before you and says, I think it should be something else. And how do you resolve those conflicts where your beliefs or the political beliefs or beliefs about what good land use is or development, you know, tell you that you think the general plan's wrong? How do you resolve that conflict?
Well, I think which from my perspective, what I do is I look at what the intent of the requirement was, right? So if there's a certain requirement that a parcel needs to be a certain size or needs to be in proximity to something else, you have to go one step back further to see why is that in place, right? And so the intent of that requirement was to avoid a negative, you know, factor or to bring positive factors or just balance, right? And so I think those are malleable in terms of the scenario or the situation that's brought to you, right? And so I think that there's a little bit of gray that if you can create a win-win and the alternative is less desirable, you know, you find a way to make it work, or you find a way, or you see the benefit to it and make recommendations based on that.
Okay, thank you. I think those are all the questions. So thank you for your willingness to participate in this process. We know it's very lengthy, and we'll be back in touch soon. Tony?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Mr. Garcia. Thank you again.
The next applicant is Andrew Ditlevson. I just texted him as just like 30 seconds ago, so he'll be signing on. So there will be a lag, a little bit of a lag between candidates.
Great.
He should be on shortly. He's been responding to my texts.
And did you say Lipson, Tony?
Aren't you unmuting? Sorry, I kept clicking mute and it wouldn't unmute. Andrew Ditlevson from District 6 is the next person.
Okay, great.
And then, so since we have a moment, the voting will take place on Monday, and it's going to be through SurveyMonkey. I'll email each of you a link to the vote. So we will probably want to recess when we do the vote, because it'll take time for everybody to get onto their email, click the link, vote, for me to get the responses and bring them back.
Tony, Mr. Lipson's last name, I'm trying to find his application in what's reverse alphabetical order on the document. I'm just, is it L-E-L?
Ditlevsen.
Okay. Oh, got it. Okay. I was looking at the wrong one.
I'm going to call him just to make sure he got the text.
It looks like he's in the attendees.
Henry's going to move him over.
Yes, I just promoted him.
Great. Mr. Ditlevson? Mr. Ditlevson, your device appears to be muted right now, so we're not able to hear you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Good to have you with us. Thank you for taking the time and for your willingness to serve on the Planning Commission. Hey, the way we usually do it here, we give folks a minute or two to just talk about themselves, about why they'd like to serve and what they think they could contribute to the Planning Commission. And then we'll go to the council for questions. Is that right?
Sounds great, Mr. Mayor.
Great.
Thank you.
Feel free to jump in then.
All right, will do. And thank you to all the city council members who are present here and giving me the opportunity to speak. I really appreciate it. So my interest in the Planning Commission really is a byproduct of my recent family changes. I have two young daughters, both of whom were born at Good Sam, same place where I was born. And I really have a vested interest. I live, I work, I've invested heavily being in the city of San Jose, and I want to do what I can using the skills that I have and that I've invested in to develop to make some sort of meaningful contribution to the city and its future, so that the place where my daughters are going to grow up reflects the kind of world that I want them to live in. Setting that aside, I don't think that that's dissimilar from probably some of the applicants that you're going to hear from today and on Monday. But on a personal note, my family, as I referenced in my application, has deep roots in San Jose. My great-grandmother immigrated here from Italy. My grandfather was born here. They lived on Delmas Avenue before the house was taken by eminent domain. She worked at the linen press her whole life, never learned to drive. So I'm keenly aware of transportation issues being important to many community members. Never really learned to read and write, but she raised two amazing kids who both ended up going to San Jose State, being teachers in San Jose, and spending decades giving back to the city. And it's through these interactions with my grandfather that he instilled in me the importance of giving back to your community in ways that are meaningful and in ways that you can give back. Not everybody is perfectly suited for every position, and so identifying the ones where you can make an impact is important. And I think I've done that by applying to the Planning Commission. As you probably know, I'm an attorney at Hopkins and Carlin. My practice revolves around real estate, basically every aspect of it. I cut my teeth doing litigation. That's still a lion's share of my practice, but I also represent people in transactions, commercial and residential. And I have components of my practice that involve fairly significant land use issues, most notably in the mobile home park context. And that's detailed in my application and on my resume.
Thank you, sir. All right, to the council. Vice Mayor Jones?
Thank you, Mayor. Andrew, first of all, I want to thank you for your willingness to serve. And I want to ask you a 30,000-foot question. What is your interpretation of the role of the Planning Commission?
Well, the role of the Planning Commission, objectively speaking, is to receive applications that come to the Planning Commission and to apply the general plan, specific area plans, ordinances, council guidance to expeditiously move those applications through to the City Council and to make recommendations to on those applications. Largely consistent, I think, with guidance from professional staff. Obviously, planning commissioners have a unique position because there are certain items that they can approve without further approval from City Council. But I understand those to be the minority of the applications that are reviewed by the Planning Commission. And on another note, I mean, I think practically speaking, the Planning Commission serves as an initial filtering body. It's a place where the public and the community members who are impacted by a particular application or applications can come and express their opinions about the project, their concerns, their fears, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. And the Planning Commission is responsible for listening critically and openly to the community members. And if there are some components of what they say that may not be entirely consistent with the general plan, well, then there's a public record that can be made and the city council can exercise its discretion or not as it decides.
Thank you. Next question is, what unique skills, abilities, or perspective do you bring to the Planning Commission?
Well, I've already referenced my real estate background. Obviously, that helps when you're dealing with certain terms of art and concepts that maybe not everybody who doesn't have a background in real estate is familiar with. And I should mention I do have a real estate broker's license too that I've had for 6 years or so. But I think more importantly, maybe is my experience as a litigation attorney. I've tried about a dozen cases, first chaired about 2/3 of those. So I know what it's like to stand up in front of a judicial body or a quasi-judicial body and be on that side of the aisle. And I think that perspective is unique based on my understanding of the composition of the council today, with the two members that are still on.
Thank you. That's all I have. And again, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Felling.
Thank you. Andrew, thank you for submitting an application to be considered for the Planning Commission. I have a couple of questions for you. One relates to your business and predominantly in relation to your representation of clients in downtown real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And do you see that as a conflict of interest, and how would you address the conflict of interest concerns?
Well, I haven't appeared before San Jose's Planning Commission ever, so I don't see that as being a significant issue at this point. I've discussed this issue prior to submitting my application with two colleagues in my office who were also planning commissioners at one point in their career, and they also didn't have any real problem with conflicts. But hypothetically speaking, if something came up where there was even a potential issue, obviously there are resources with the city attorney to ensure that those conflicts are vetted, and then if necessary, you recuse yourself.
Okay, thank you. And then I'd like to ask you a question as it relates to the city council district that you're coming from. And I'm just going to put it out there because it may be on all of the council's mind that as we think about diversity in representation across the county, the city, as we have planning commissioners who represent or live in, let's say, other parts of the city. So how do you address that objection that council members have in appointing you because you're coming from District 6 and we already have one applicant or one commissioner still there and then two applying to be reconsidered for another term?
Yeah, and obviously I'm aware of this issue, more keenly aware since I applied. But variety is good, obviously, spice of life, right? But I don't necessarily know that variety is equal to geographic dispersion amongst planning commissioners. If it is, that's great. But I think what you're looking for is a variety of perspective, a variety of skill set, and ultimately you want people who are qualified to do this job. This is not an easy job to do. It requires a tremendous commitment, both of time and of intellectual horsepower. So while variety is certainly a good goal to have, if you can achieve that while maintaining the quality of the Planning Commission, that's great. But I think quality is the most important component that should be achieved for the greater good of the city.
Thank you. I don't disagree with you. And since you brought up time and you said you have two little kids and you have a busy law practice, do you see any conflicts in being able to fulfill the commitment of the time that's involved in the Planning Commission?
Short answer is I do not. I obviously vetted that very carefully before I even applied. Again, I have two colleagues in my office, both of whom became chairpersons of the Planning Commission at one point. And we've had deep conversations about that. And I would not have applied if I didn't believe that I could fully effectuate the duty.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for applying. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Andrew, for applying to serve as a planning commissioner. We have, as you know, a severe housing shortage in the Bay Area, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. And also, we have a low jobs to employed resident ratio in the city of San Jose. These are issues that will that will come up. They come up all the time for us as a planning commissioner. How would you balance or address those two kind of competing issues as a planning commissioner when projects are coming your way, especially as it relates to requests for amending the general plan?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know if there's any easy answer, but COVID certainly has not made this discussion any easier given the projected job loss that San Jose is likely to suffer as a result, thereby putting greater stress on those two competing concerns. But ultimately, the Planning Commission is not a policy-making body, so there is a general plan. There are policies and rules and regulations that apply and that are being applied. And planning commissioner's job is not to usurp the policy-making authority of the city council. So while you can certainly make recommendations and comments to the extent that policies are required to be changed, that's the city council's job. That's the job of the task force to amend the general plan. That's why there are 4-year and annual reviews so that policy issues can be addressed not only by the city council members who are elected, but by the community stakeholders who are investing significant amounts of their personal time giving their feedback and crafting those policies. I mean, it would be a real shame to have amendments done and then to have those amendments either ignored or misapplied by planning commissioners. There is a process here and the process should be respected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rennes.
Thank you, Mayor. I've asked this question of a prior applicant, and I'm going to ask you, Andrew. By the way, thank you so much for your application and your interest in public service. My question is, do you believe equity should be prioritized as a decision making factor?
Well, I mean, notions of equity are a little vague, but bottom line, in a court of equity, the idea is the court's trying to accomplish some sort of fairness, some fair outcome. And in planning commission, again, your discretion is constrained by the governing documents, but equity can be achieved through transparency, through open dialogue, by providing the community with a place to go and have their concerns legitimately heard. And to the extent there is some discretion, for example, maybe adding a condition or two that may on balance make sense, address community interests by not overburdening the project, those things should be thoughtfully considered and where appropriate, implemented. But again, it's a very fine line because, again, you don't want to be usurping the city council's decision-making authority. That is not the role of the planning commission, and I'm very sensitive to that fact for the reasons I've already articulated.
Right, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you would listen, and two, that you would potentially add some level of condition to address that. So I know that you are a lawyer and a real estate lawyer, and I wanted to ask you just really plainly. I believe you've dealt with eviction of tenants.
I have.
How would you say that experience qualifies you more or less as a candidate to be on this, or as a commissioner?
Well, I don't know that it necessarily goes directly to my qualifications as a planning commissioner, but it certainly provides me with a unique perspective. I've spent many an hour out in the hallway in front of Judge Overton's courtroom dealing with both commercial and residential evictions. And to be totally honest with you, council member, 95% of those settle, if not more. So I'm used to being a party to a negotiation which addresses concerns, legitimate concerns on both sides, because there There are always two sides to every story, and the goal is to find a balance that achieves palatable resolution. And palatable is an intentional word.
Got it. Balance. And recognizing that there's two sides. So I also noticed you participated in a candidate cultivation academy, which is a 4-month program for people who are interested in running for public office. If you were accepted, I mean, how do we know that you're committed to serving the full term on the Planning Commission?
Well, I applied to that program for the policy component primarily, and it was with the aim of eventually applying to the Planning Commission, to be totally candid with you. And it just so happens that the vacancy came up in the middle of the program, and so the timing was actually really optimal because there's some exercises that I was able to kind of refashion to fit my application for the Planning Commission. And it's a wonderful program, and there is a rich diversity of perspective, background, geographic location of the candidates. I mean, San Francisco, Mountain View, all the way down to, you know, San Martin. So it was really a very, very fulfilling experience for me personally. But let me answer, I think, what your question is really very directly. I have zero intention of running for public office beyond this Planning Commission.
Yes, I no leg to stand on.
You don't want the pay cut, I can take it.
I obviously believe in public service and we need people involved. So I applaud your efforts in making sure that you go through as many trainings and experiences that would help you be in better shape either to serve your clients or your community, or now as a future potential planning commissioner. Thank you. Those were my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just two questions. I'll try to make them brief. First, and again, thank you for your willingness to serve. You know, as you think about jumping into the Planning Commission, often people think there are particular problems in the city they want to solve through their participation in a commission. What do you think that the problem or problems are that you can help address by being part of the Planning Commission?
I think the answer to that is probably twofold, and realistically twofold. One is housing, getting qualified applications and making sure that those applications reach City Council as expeditiously as possible, particularly those that are in transportation corridors and focused areas under the general plan. That's where we're going to make the most headway quickest. And then it's a concept that I touched on earlier, which I'm really a very strong proponent of. I think personally, it's just my general life philosophy, but also as my role as a litigant and an attorney, it's transparency. You know, there is, with everything going on, I don't think it's an overstatement to say there's a certain level of distrust among the public and public officials. And in my opinion, one of the primary means of resolving that issue is by maximizing, optimizing transparency and public discourse. And I would certainly encourage all those avenues respectfully as my role as a planning commissioner.
Okay, thanks. And then, as you know, you're familiar in this line of work that we've got a general plan in the city, which dictates land use patterns, and there'll be times when applications will come before you and may ask for a decision that would seem to conflict with the general plan, and you might well believe that what the applicant wants is the right outcome. It may in fact be more consistent with your views, your priorities, your political opinions, whatever. And so where your opinions and views conflict with the general plans, how do you resolve that as a planning commissioner?
The answer to that question is actually fairly simple. The general plan is a document that is crafted by elected officials with community feedback. You follow the general plan, you follow the policy guidelines, and you apply that document. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but that's really the long and short of it. And if City Council decides that they want to make an exception to the general plan, they want to engage in an amendment, that's their province, as is the province of the task force during the annual and every 4-year amendment process, which we're in the middle of right now. That's where those things are resolved. And if it's resolved in a way that aligns more with my personal opinion in the future, then that's wonderful. But it's not my job, nor is it my place in the democratic process to usurp that authority.
Thank you, sir. So I think those are all the questions. Thanks again for bringing your considerable skills and experience to this role. And we'll be back in touch soon. We'll be doing interviews today and Monday, so it's going to take us a few days to figure all this out.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for your continued service. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Hi, George Casey is next. I know he tested his direct link earlier, so he should be on. I just saw his name pop up. So George Casey is on.
Hello, can you folks hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now, George. Sure. Your video is not on though. Did you want?
Oh, sorry about that.
No problem.
I was trying to spare you having to see my ugly face.
No, it's all good. So thank you for taking the time to come back through the process. I appreciate that you went through extensive process before, and appreciate your willingness to reapply. And I know you know how this works with the interview process. I typically give folks a minute or two to describe their interest in the position and what they believe they can bring to the commission, and then we'll jump right into questions.
Excellent.
Thank
Okay. So my name is George Casey, and I believe that my professional and academic background, along with nearly 4 decades of residing in San Jose, make me a suitable, if not ideal, candidate for this position. I grew up in District 2, went to Santa Teresa Elementary, Burnell Junior High. For high school, I went to Bellarmine in District 6. My family, while I was in high school, moved to District 10. I've lived in District 1, 3, 4, and 5 over the years. I'm currently a real estate attorney at Morrison & Forrester, their Palo Alto office. Prior to that, I was a real estate attorney at Hoag Fenton, downtown San Jose's office. I am really interested in utilizing my background to help shape the direction that San Jose is going in. I love my city. I think that right now, wonderful things are happening, particularly downtown, and it's just exciting for me to the prospect of, in any way, shape, or form, being involved with how this city ends up developing its built environment is very exciting to me.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, George, for your willingness to serve. Got a high-level question for you to start out. In your perspective, from your perspective, what do you believe the role of the Planning Commission should be or is?
I believe the Planning Commission, their responsibility is to make recommendations to the City Council on adoption and amendment of the general plan and any specific development plans that come before the Planning Commission. This involves zoning decisions, adoption of capital improvement plans, as well as, from what I understand, act as an appellate body to certain planning director decisions, and certify any EIR reports that come before the Planning Commission. But ultimately, we are advisors to the City Council. We'll process and analyze whatever information or plans that come before us, and then provide a recommendation to the City Council.
What unique skills, abilities, or perspective would you bring to the Planning Commission?
I believe my background as a real estate attorney, the fact that I have a master's in urban and regional planning from San Jose State, I'm also a licensed real estate broker, and the fact that I've generally just loved the built environment, and I recognize how it can impact people's lives. I'm also a first-generation college graduate. I come from a working class family, and I also understand how decisions that are made that affect the built environment can affect people both socioeconomically and just overall their quality of life. So I believe, coming from that perspective and appreciating how the built environment can impact people, I think coming from that perspective would be beneficial to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, George. And again, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Councilmember Foley?
George, thank you so much for coming back and interviewing with us again. I recall your initial interview, and I'm glad you took the time to reapply and you're back at it.
Thank you.
Couple of questions regarding your real estate law practice.
Sure.
Can you tell me, without violating any privacy laws or anything, give me a general idea of what your typical real estate client is or transaction is?
So the practice that I'm in, it's a very small practice. We have a partner of counsel and 2 other associates. And what was unique and why I took the position is that the partner that I work for, pretty much, generally speaking, in real estate law, most people are specialists and they do niche things. My partner does everything from loans to acquisitions, dispositions, and workouts. No entitlements as of yet. But in general, buying a real estate property, doing the due diligence for our client, and if we're selling it, negotiating the purchase agreement. And if they're acquiring a loan, we negotiate with the lender and the lender's counsel with respect to our client's position, and basically redlining documents back and forth to one another.
So when you refer to redlining, you don't really mean redlining per se.
Not from it. No, not from
Thank
historical. No, ma'am.
Just wanted to give you an opportunity to
Thank you.
to mention, to clarify your
No.
position
As
on
an
redlining.
African American man, no,
I know, using the red pen to mark out what's incorrect. Got it.
Right.
I hear you. Do you see, now in your application, you mentioned that you don't see a conflict because you don't do any business in the city of San Jose, and you
Correct.
don't anticipate doing any business in the city of San Jose.
I do not.
So can you tell me how you might address an issue should a conflict occur?
Oh, I would make the planning commission and everyone involved aware of if there is a conflict, and probably recuse myself from that proceeding.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself, or why we should select you from a group of 100 applications? Okay, that's an exaggeration, but
I think I alluded to it earlier. Actually, I specifically mentioned it. I love real estate, and I recognize the impact that these decisions have on the population. And I just know that I would approach this from a fair-minded perspective, and that the council could rely on me to analyze and go through all of the information and provide, as I would for my clients in my law practice, provide the counsel that they would need to make their ultimate decision.
thank you. I appreciate that. I love real estate too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rennes?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you, Georgia, applying once again, and I heard you loud and clear that you're excited about some of the changes that we're all going through and helping shape San Jose.
Definitely.
We all are, right?
Yeah.
And I just heard you say that, you want to make sure that you have a fair-minded perspective when you make recommendations as a planning commissioner, and I value that. My question is about equity, and do you believe that equity should be prioritized in a decision-making factor as a planning commissioner?
Of course. Yeah, I believe that everyone involved in the process should be treated fairly and equitably. Like I said, I come from a working class background, and I recognize that many of these planning decisions can have impacts on a wide swath of the population. And more often than not, the lower rungs on the socioeconomic ladder don't have a voice in these types of decisions. So I would feel obligated, obviously, to be cognizant of what would ultimately occur to them with any decision that I make.
Right. No, I hear you. I also come from a working class family, not the first to go to college, but definitely very proud. And so I understand some of the difficulties that some of us have to go through. And as Councilmember Foley already alluded to, there are, we recognize that there were some mistakes in the past made, whether, inadvertently or intentionally, to redline and segregate folks. That's what we're living with, and that's what we're trying to undo and be more progressive and live with one another in a different way. So I know that your decisions as a planning commissioner will have to take that into account to make sure that we don't continue to make the same type of decisions that we've made in the past.
Definitely.
Can you tell me about maybe some examples that in your current work or life that you incorporate equity into your decisions?
So the firm I work with is a big law firm with a lot of resources. And another reason why I joined the firm is that they have a huge pro bono presence. And I have been lucky enough to marshal a lot of my firm's resources into a lot of pro bono work dealing with a number of nonprofits in terms of all of their real estate dealings, whether it's dealing a lease or they're selling a property or trying to buy a property. Our firm, we're supposed to do roughly 50 hours a year. I've done 150 hours in this past year of pro bono work for nonprofits in Oakland and the other parts of the East Bay. So professionally, I've tried to use the knowledge and the fact that I work at a big firm to kind of marshal those resources into areas that could help folks.
Can you share with us a case maybe that you worked on in the pro bono? I know that's admirable, 150 hours. People typically, volunteer only once during Thanksgiving. So
Right.
can you tell us maybe some of the results from that pro bono work?
Sure. So without getting too specific, as far as the client goes, there's a group that works with disadvantaged, at-risk minority kids, particularly young African American and Hispanic boys that have had some dealings with the criminal justice system, and we helped them purchase a property from another nonprofit. And in addition to purchasing the property, we found another property close in adjacent to them, and we're actually helping them with the development of expanding their building in order to incorporate. They have a media presence that they're trying to, a multimedia development that they're trying to build out to try to teach the kids as well. So that I'm actually still involved with that, and beyond the scope of what our pro bono hours are, that's with me going up there on the weekends as well and being involved beyond what my pro bono hours are as well.
Got it. Okay. I think those are the questions that I had. I think as you know, your work is absolutely important in the pro bono real estate, which I think brings a different perspective. I also think that we need to continue to work equity actively into our decision making, especially as a planning commissioner. And so I know that that's part of a real discussion among not just commissioners, but everyone at all levels of government. And so I would expect that as a planning commissioner that you would also hold that really high. And thank you for your application, and congrats on being interviewed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. And thank you, George, for continuing to be willing to serve on the planning.
Thank you.
and willing to go through this a second. I just have one question. As you know, we have a severe housing shortage in the Bay Area. And then in the city of San Jose, we have a very low jobs to employed resident ratio. So these are kind of competing interests. And I'm wondering, how would you balance or address these issues as a planning commissioner?
I don't know what powers I would have unless it's in the amendment process, but I think mixed use developments, I think higher density for our city would kind of address at least the housing issue to some degree. I know that the general plan's jobs to employed resident goal is fairly ambitious, but I think as a commuter coming from Almaden and driving all the way to Palo Alto along 280 and at times along 101, I think that in terms of jobs, we're going in the right direction right now as far as building up downtown San Jose and providing that as a employment base potentially. I don't see that there necessarily need to be conflicting interests. Like I said, if we build up the density for residential housing and then also use mixed use development to kind of deal with both, I believe there's a path forward that can address both issues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Casey, I had a couple questions.
Sure.
One is, people often join commissions because they're motivated to address problems in the community. And I'm curious what problem or problems you think your participation in the planning commission could help address in our city.
Well, the council member, Davis, just kind of touched on what I'm interested in. I think it's been far too long that we didn't address the jobs issue, or at least we have tried, but I don't think we had much momentum until much recently as far as the developments that are going on downtown San Jose. I'd like to see more jobs in San Jose. I think it would have an environmental benefit as well. It would take a lot of cars off the streets, off the freeways by having a robust employment center in the downtown area and some of the urban villages. I'm also very concerned with affordable housing. I think, like San Francisco and some of these other areas in New York, I think it's sad that people that are born and raised in San Jose ultimately can't afford to live in San Jose. So I think the jobs to employed residents ratio is something that's very important to me, as well as affordable housing.
I noticed you have a master's, as you mentioned, in urban planning, San Jose State. Why did you decide to go get a master's? That was before your law degree, right?
It was.
Yeah. Why did you decide to go do that?
As I mentioned before, I love real estate, and to me, many of the decisions that were made over the years in San Jose just didn't make sense to me. So I wanted to understand some of the background and the processes that are involved in making decisions as far as the built environment is concerned. Just to give you an example, when I was taking a bus from South San Jose to Bellarmine, we would pass through South First Street with adult movie theaters along Alameda, and it just struck me as odd that a city as rich in resources as ours wouldn't be more developed, wouldn't have a different look to it. And I just couldn't, what was the cog? What was preventing San Jose from, I think Mayor Hammer was the one that said San Jose is growing up. That was the mantra, that was the slogan. And to me, it didn't seem like we were. It seemed like for some reason we were stalled. So I went to get my master's in urban planning to understand the whole process behind the decisions that are made.
Yeah. Thank you. The last thing is just, there are times on the planning commission, you're going to see the general plan dictates the land use to be X, and an applicant wants it to be Y. And you think about it and you're like, I got a master's in in urban planning, and I know what's what. And it seems to me Y is probably better than X, and your opinion conflicts with what the general plan dictates. How do you resolve that conflict?
I'm bound to the general plan. I would try to find a middle ground if there was, but to me, the general plan is the constitution for the decisions that we make. And there was a lot of deliberation that went to developing the general plan. I wasn't necessarily involved, but it's incumbent upon me to honor the vision that was presented in the general plan. And unless an amendment comes up where we can all get involved and deliberate again on changing something that I find that needs to be changed, I think I would ultimately have to follow what the general plan states.
Thanks, Mr. Casey. I think those are all the questions. I really appreciate your willingness to go through this process again, and particularly with your experience and background. It's really great to have.
Honored to have the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good weekend. We're going to interview some more candidates between now and Monday. We'll get back to you soon.
Excellent. Good luck, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tony. Peter Allen is next, and he is already, he just signed on, so he's on there.
Hi, Peter. Welcome. You know what? We can't hear you. I think, okay, your device is on mute.
You know what? I unmuted myself, and I think someone muted me again just to.
Okay. Well, we do that sometimes just to keep people on their toes.
No problem at all. How are you doing today?
Perry, thank you for all your service on the commission. We know that's a lot of late nights and a lot of hours. So thank you for all the time that you've devoted to our city.
No more so than you have to deal with, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Well, we get paid for it, though.
we get a little stipend, so it helps pay the utility bill.
Yeah, that's true. So I think you know the drill. Typically, we, a minute or two just to tell us a little bit about why you want to continue serving and what you think you can bring to the Planning Commission with another term. And then we'll jump right into questions.
Great. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. It's an honor to be with you today, seeking a second term on the Planning Commission. I want you to know that I know you have a long day ahead of you, so you have my application. I'm not going to get into a protracted origin story. Suffice it to say that I'm incredibly lucky and privileged to be a homeowner in the Shasta-Hampshire Park neighborhood of District 6. I grew up and was very privileged to grow up on Settle Avenue in Willow Glen, son of a public school teacher and an accountant. I've had the pleasure of living in Japantown, Northside, downtown as a renter, and I've also worked extensively throughout our city as a nonprofit professional and a community activist, as many of you well know. I've earned a living as a journalist, an organizer, a consultant, and now a small business owner, but I believe it's what you do for free that defines who you are. And to that end, I was honored to serve the city as an arts commissioner from 2012 until I was first appointed to the Planning Commission in August of 2016. And in my 4 years as a planning commissioner, I have done my best to uphold the goals, the ideals, and the policies enshrined in our general plan and our other city policies, while also providing what I feel is a nuanced and diverse perspective on development in our city and how the impacts are felt in different ways by different communities. These days, there is a great deal of pressure on city leaders like yourselves to act with urgency, to confront the somewhat opposing challenges of improving our jobs and housing ratio as mandated by the general plan, and providing adequate and affordable housing opportunities for all residents in our city as demanded by the reality of the times in which we're living. Planning commissioners are not immune to these pressures, and it often comes in the form of loud and boisterous public comment at our meetings and lengthy last-minute letters of legalese from attorneys backed by special interests citing specious environmental concerns. While it should come as no surprise that I'm a firm believer in public engagement and letting every voice be heard, the role of a commissioner is quasi-judicial. We cannot and should not wear our emotions on our sleeves, nor should we allow our heartstrings to be tugged upon. The job of a commissioner is to review projects based on the applicable policies and then make decisions and recommendations that reflect the best path forward, and not just for District 6, not just for my neighbors, but for the entire city. If you review my work as a commissioner, I think you'll find that I'm consistently bring an equity lens to my decision making, and my recommendations to you are regularly framed by my concerns around the inherent bias of the underlying policies that we are sometimes tasked with upholding. I wholly support the council's efforts to bring more diversity to our boards and commissions so that they can better reflect the city that we love. But as you decide how to fill the seats available today, and you have 5 seats capable of being filled, that's more than a majority, obviously, of the commission. I believe it's important that you also consider experience, that you consider continuity, and you consider these as key factors in building an effective and productive commission. I'd be honored by the opportunity to continue to serve my city. I absolutely love this work. I love this role, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll leave it to the council. Councilmember Perales.
Yeah, thanks. And appreciate you reapplying, Peter, and for your service in our community, and just knowing you for a number of years, for your friendship as well. I think you've shown great dedication to our community. I think for me, and I think you're well aware of this, we obviously are striving for better equitable representation geographically. And I think it's not just the geographics that we're seeking to have, simply saying, great, we have somebody from different parts of the city representing on the planning commission. We're obviously looking for an ability to have what are many different neighborhoods, some that you would imagine might be in different cities, but they're not, because San Jose is so large, so diverse, and we have people that may never actually visited particular parts of our city. It's that big. And so, that is certainly the interest. And I know we've had different opinions and thoughts around that, but I wanted to see how, and clearly, right, this I came up with another District 6 applicant in questions, I think from Councilmember Foley, was, right, you are serving in the District 6 role. We currently have somebody there. We have, yourself and one other reapplying for the position. What are your thoughts in that regard? And then why do you think, right, you would still be deserving of a reappointment to the role?
Well, thanks very much for the question, Councilmember. And just kind of point out, I'm getting a real Superman 2 Krypton Council vibe. I don't know if Councilmembers Davis or Dieppe are picking that up either. But to be entirely serious, I feel that the council is on the right path in terms of trying to create more diversity on the commission. I think diversity of perspectives is incredibly valuable, and that comes from not just my personal feelings, but also having served on the commission now for 4 years. I've been honored and blessed to serve with commissioners who bring a real wide variety of perspectives, regardless of where they come from in the city, frankly. But I also am not immune to recognizing that our commission could very much better reflect the diversity of our city, not just in terms of perspectives, but yes, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of racial and other diversity. So I'm a firm believer in that, and I think the council is on the right path to that. As a commissioner myself, being from District 6, being from probably the most privileged class in our city as a white male, my only interest is really serving the city. And I think the uniqueness that I bring to the table is an experience. Like you said, I've worked around these issues for a number of years. I've been engaged in these issues for a number of years, and not just in District 6, but throughout the city. As you know, I've worked extensively on the east side. I've worked extensively in South San Jose. I've worked extensively in North San Jose. So I feel that I have a unique and broad perspective of the issues that are at play in all of our communities, and the projects big and small that are coming there. And then, having served in the commission, having worked around city government, I have an intricate understanding of the process. I know how to read between the lines of a staff report. I know the policies probably better than most people would ever care to. And I feel that that helps me and it helps the commission, frankly, get to better decisions that have positive impacts for the entire city. I think experience does matter. I think it's important. And while I appreciate the council's desire to create more geographic diversity in the commission, and I wholly applaud that and appreciate that and encourage you to go forward with that, I'm reapplying because I absolutely love this role. I love this work, and I feel like I have that experience to offer. And I think it could be beneficial if you decide to appoint 3 or 4 new commissioners today. It would be incredibly beneficial to have more experience carried over so that we can help those commissioners get up to speed and do the great work that I'm sure they all can.
Can I interrupt and ask Councilmember Davis, or do you have to explain the kryptonite reference?
I was hoping that reference wouldn't fall on deaf
Kneel
ears.
before Zon.
There you go. You got it.
Okay, I'll look it up. Thanks. Councilmember Perales?
All of that was totally over my head.
And my wife's too. She's probably cringing watching this on YouTube.
Yeah, not what Peter said, but yeah, the other references. Yeah, no, that's all for my questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember.
Great. Councilmember Rennes?
Thank you. So thank you for reapplying once again, Peter, and for your service, not only on this commission, but on the Arts Commission, as you mentioned earlier. So you've had 2 terms, and I wonder if you could share with us some examples of you incorporating equity into your decisions, maybe some of those decisions that you're most proud of when you've considered impacts on communities of color. Oh, and I apologize, I didn't put my video on.
No problem. Greetings. Good to see you. And I truly appreciate your backdrops as well, by the way. I think that's Fraser today, so very nice. So I just a clarification. I have served 1 term, so I'm finishing my 1st term, and I'm applying for my 2nd term on the commission. And frankly, I don't think any commissioner could probably do this for longer than 2 terms. As you well know from being on the council, it's a lot of work. It's a privilege, but it's a lot of work. So I was not expecting to apply for a 3rd term eventually either. As far as bringing the equity lens to our work, it's difficult in the work that we do, right? Because as has been stated, I think ad nauseum, the policies that impact our work are predominantly determined by council, by elected officials, and then by community engagement, and they are in many ways predetermined. As far as bringing an equity lens to the work, I think that also impacts that work too, right? We're impacted by the fact that perhaps equity wasn't a key factor in creating the general plan that we currently have, right? So how can we work through the task force and the update process to make sure that it is included in the next general plan so that future planning commissions can use that? Because I would absolutely love to have policies that I can cite, and there are many already within the general plan, as far as impact to neighborhoods, as far as design guidelines, a lot of things that you wouldn't expect that were crafted with an equity lens. So I try to make sure that we're upholding those as much as possible. It's just very difficult as a commissioner, and it's challenging for me because I truly believe in these values and principles, to bring that to bear in our work and still at the same time do my job and uphold the policies in place. So specifically, there have been occasional projects. I want to say I look back, and I think I've disagreed with staff's recommendation as far as my vote 5 times in 4 years. Each of those occasions, I used the policy. I took their policy recommendations, but I also tried to dig a little deeper and to try to find if there was a way that we can move a project forward or a change forward that I thought would be beneficial to the whole city, while using the policy to defend it. And I can think of one one issue where we were asked to change the GP designation for a site in my district on Lincoln Avenue from commercial to, I think, residential mixed use that I thought was appropriate for the site and for what the goals of the city were. So I did vote against the recommendation there. And then there was another project I want to say, also actually in District 6, which had to do with housing for Santa Clara University and affordable housing for teachers and educators. And the project they wanted to put forward would involve flipping over an industrial land. And I did think very long and hard about that. I reviewed all the applicable policies, and I made a decision to say that I felt that the project was appropriate. And I'm glad to see that the council actually upheld the Planning Commission's recommendation there. So those are a couple areas, but again, it's difficult to bring those policies to bear unless they have some teeth in them that we can use as commissioners.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
100% appreciate the question, and I try to do my best to do that.
Great, thank you. And actually, the question I was asking other applicants is whether they thought that equity served a role in their decision-making process. And so I hear you loud and clear that by the time those decisions come to you, some of that is expected to have baked in. And so it's policy questions that are before the process that you then begin to get involved.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that you've had some difficult decisions to make, and that you've made them thinking about equity or the impact of other communities of color into those decisions. So those are really my questions. I appreciate your service, and thank you so much. Those are
Thank
my
you. If I could add really briefly, there is one area I think where commissioners can get involved in terms of creating more equity, and that's around community engagement. I think that individual commissioners can and should do more to be an objective conduit between the public and the city. And because I'm well on record as saying that I think that our council policy, outreach policy is a little out of date and inadequate, and I think we're working on that. I think it is imperative on commissioners, council members, any public appointed or elected officials to really serve as that conduit and let people know what's going on, and making sure that every community that's impacted by a project is in that building or at the table or has a voice in some way, and they know how they can have an impact. And that's one thing I notice consistently does not happen. And that's one area in terms of equity. That's one area I think we can have a direct impact. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you for bringing that up. And you're right, there is a process already set into motion to address that. But yes, it's absolutely, we're lacking there. And I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thoughtful insight. Councilmember Davis?
Thank you. And thank you, Peter, for serving on the Planning Commission. You and I have actually talked about ad nauseum, I think, the housing shortage in the Bay Area and the other issue that impacts San Jose more than other cities in the Bay Area, which is our jobs to employed resident ratio being very low. How has this impacted your work as a planning commissioner? How have you addressed it? Has it come up, and how has it been how have you handled that potential conflict?
Well, Councilmember, thank you for the question and your service to our district. It comes up almost every time we're considering a project that's more than a few units or a few square feet. Anytime there's a project of a number of residential units or a certain amount of square footage of commercial, or a mix of both, this issue is front and center for us. And it's been a challenge, I know from commissioner discussion, from our deliberations, that no matter who I've served with, we've had consistent consternation around this issue. How do we balance the fact that we're here to uphold the general plan that's telling us we need to improve the jobs to housing imbalance, right? And at the same time, understand that we have 6,000 people living on our streets at any given time and any given evening, right? And how do we fulfill our moral and financial and fiscal obligation to house them, right? Because at the end of the day, that is part of our role as a city too, is public safety, and public safety is partly dictated by housing and having a safe place to go at night. So long story short, it comes up almost every time. How do we balance it? It's really about digging into the good old general plan, to the policies that play there, and see if there are ways that we can, I know staff already does this in their recommendations, and they are really good at their job in terms of finding ways we can move projects forward that accomplish both, right? That either have a mixed use component where you're creating commercial component, but you're also creating the housing you need. My process usually just involves looking at the balance and looking at what we're taking away and what we're putting in its place. And that goes to displacement, of the existing residences and existing businesses, but it also goes to just the raw data. And I know that, Councilmember, you're very big on data and analysis. And to me, it is a numbers game. It's about, okay, how many jobs are currently on that site? How many are we creating? How many residences are on that site? How many are we creating with this project? And at the end of the day, how are we able to integrate, hopefully, the existing residences and the residents and the existing businesses into some sort of new project in an equitable way? It's always a balance. I think the staff generally strikes a really good balance. Actually, generally, almost all the time, strikes a very good balance in their recommendations. It really is up, again, to the commission, I think, to uphold those values and the values that they cite and the policies they cite when it comes to pushback from the community and pushback from, say, commercial developers who want to see less housing development, or housing developers that want to see less commercial development, or want to see, focus on their industry, and then neighbors who are concerned about the impacts from those projects. It's a delicate balancing act, but I think that we usually have a robust dialogue around it. And at the end of the day, the decisions we've made, I think, are consistently the best ones for the whole city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was muted and I thought I was speaking.
No problem.
Councilmember, yeah, my apologies.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Mayor. Hey, Peter. Thank you for the Superman 2 reference. I'm glad a few of us got it.
I'm glad you got it, Councilmember. Thank you.
I want
That was
to.
before you were born. Yeah, I remember I was 10 years old. I can.
I'm showing my age, I guess.
Anyways, I appreciate your continued desire to serve, and I tend to agree that experience counts, and continuity of I guess institutional knowledge there's value in that. So I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to elaborate on that, because that is one of the things that distinguishes you from a few of the other applicants. What have you learned in your first term? I mean, how have you changed, your perspective on planning or city government or anything like that in the time that you've served, if at all?
Thank you, Councilmember. My perspective has absolutely changed in ways that I didn't particularly expect. I don't know if you know, but I actually interviewed for this role 3 times before I got appointed. And so I came into the role with what I thought was a very firm understanding of the parameters of the powers at play, the strengths, the weaknesses, the constraints, right, and the abilities of a commissioner. And so for the most part, I think those expectations have been upheld. If anything, the challenge for me has been having to reconcile the role of a commissioner, of being a quasi-judicial, objective observer, a judge really, with my personal and life outside of the commission as, for lack of a better word, an activist and an advocate, and someone who is not ashamed and does not usually hold back on sharing opinions and being more vocal about where our government, where our society can head. But you have to check all that at the door, and I don't think I truly understood that. I said it. I said it in my interview, I'm pretty sure, last time when I was appointed the first time, but I don't think I truly got it until I walked into the room and sat down at the dais and looked out at a fairly empty council chambers, to be honest with you, but really felt the gravity of the role and the need to uphold the gravity of that role and respect that role. And it's been challenging for me personally, because I have a lot of friends in the community who are fighting on one side or the other of a lot of these issues that tend to get brought up at Planning Commission, and certainly before you. And so it's been a challenge for me to help them, bring them along with my journey, and help them understand how there are times when when we can put up a fight and we can make bold recommendations, but most of the time it's really about following the policies at play and then making the best recommendation possible. And it's just challenging for some folks to understand. And I truly didn't understand it until I joined the commission. And then the experience, I think would benefit me going forward. And with, like I said, assisting future new commissioners, is just understanding those nuances of policy, understanding the consistent ways that things get approached, and sometimes the pitfalls that we fall into, and the traps that we fall into, and the tropes that we fall into a lot of the times. And how easy it is for a commissioner to simply be a rubber stamp and to just sort of read the reports and just show up and vote, and not really have a real in-depth understanding of the issues and make a real thoughtful decision. So if anything, I've learned how to do that, how to read really dense reports and understand where they're coming from and anticipate questions and actually ask those questions in advance so that we can get more clarity at the meetings for the public. So there's a couple areas where I think
I appreciate that. I do want to ask you one thing that pertains specifically to you.
Sure.
So you're aware that recently the council voted to make some changes to the composition of the planning commission. There's been a lot of public discussion around geographic representation and other types of representation on the planning commission. About a year, I forget exactly the date, but during this whole time, in the previous time that we were appointing commissioners to the planning commission, I think you were quoted, or you might have wrote an op-ed or something. I forget exactly, but I recall you saying something to the effect of speaking to your own qualifications, and I think something to the putting your own qualifications in question in a self-reflective manner. So I just want to have you touch upon that and expound upon that, or anything to that effect, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't have it in front of me. I just recall something to that effect.
Yeah, no, Councilmember, thank you for the question and for the memory. So I did, around the time that the composition of the commission and the diversity of the commission came to be a very prominent issue about a little more than a year and 3 months ago, I did write a piece on, I believe, Medium, on my personal Medium, about some reflection that I had around this subject, because the issue came up of privilege and of the impacts that has on who leads or who has the opportunity to lead and have a voice in city decisions. So I did do some really serious reflection on that as, like I said, a white man from District 6. I'm probably in the least persecuted, most privileged class in our entire city. And I recognize that deeply. And it made me, if anything, it didn't necessarily make me question my qualifications to serve. I'm fairly confident in those abilities, but it did make me question how I was, the reasons behind my appointment in the first place, and the reasons why any of us get appointed, frankly. Because at the end of the day, I think, and you'll find from the cohort that you're interviewing today, you have a fantastic group of people here. They're all incredibly qualified, and any of them I think would make fantastic planning commissioners. So if anything, it made me question why I might have had a better opportunity, or more of an opportunity, or been given this opportunity that someone else might have been just as, if not more deserving of, simply because I'm a white man from District 6. So then that has been front and center, frankly, since I got the role, since I decided to run for office, as I did before I joined the commission even. It's been something that's been very concerning to me, is that how can I most effectively bring to bear the values that I believe in, and equity and inclusion and diversity? How can I bring those to bear and yet still not, be taking up space as a white man, right? And not letting other folks who might have much more to say have a voice in that role. So it's been a challenge for me to try and find my voice. And I try to do that outside of the commission. I try not to bring those issues to bear as much as I can within the commission, but it's certainly something that's front and center in my mind at all times.
Right. So I appreciate that. And I know we're always growing and evolving, and more experiences change us. But just on what you just said, so that begs the question to me. You're clearly a qualified candidate. There's no question in my mind about that. You've served and you have institutional experience. This question of, I guess, taking up space. There are only limited seats, and we're only going to bring on 5 people. So how do you, I guess, balance that potential of taking up space, or really just saying you're a member of the city, you're a community member, everyone should be encouraged to serve regardless of whatever background?
Yeah, to clarify, I think it was a question I asked myself, right? Was I taking up space? At the end of the day, I could have, and I even did consider resigning, frankly, last year when this kerfuffle, shall we say, came up in the first place. I did very seriously consider stepping down and allowing someone else to take my spot, who might be able to bring a perspective that potentially I couldn't. But I did a lot of reflection on that, and found that I felt like I did bring a lot to the commission. And at the end of the day, I do love the work, and I was asked to serve by the council, and I wanted to serve out my term, and I would absolutely be privileged and honored to have a second term, because I think that if I am, we're all taking up space, right? But I think my space in this commission would be exactly what I've said already, is to bring that knowledge base, that experience, and that holistic perspective around the entire city. I was born and raised here. I've worked all over the city. I know I'm intimately involved and connected to the community in all areas of our city. So I felt that despite my privileged disability, I can bring, I think, incredibly valuable voice to the commission and incredibly valuable perspective, and also help to bring some of these diverse perspectives you're trying to appoint to the commission together, right, around some common goals and some common sense values. But you're not making any small decision. Like it's 5 of the commissioners. You can appoint a pretty much super majority of the commission. So you have a chance to completely remake it. But I think you need to think about, before you do that, what that's going to mean as far as what we're talking about in other questions in terms of moving projects along and continuing to fulfill our goals, right? You need experienced commissioners who can help those new commissioners understand the role and better serve.
All right. Well, thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Just to follow up, Peter, just help me understand, again, maybe a little more fully, why you decided after writing the piece that you should continue to serve and why you should be reappointed, given the views you expressed.
At the end of the day, it goes back a lot to sort of my general philosophy around service. I take public service incredibly seriously, and like I said, I applied 3 times to serve on the Planning Commission. The first 2 times, I will humbly admit that I was doing it to gain more knowledge about city policies and procedures and land use with the intent of potentially running for office one day. I will firmly admit that. The third time I applied because I had come to really love this work. I had come to love these working in these policy areas, digging into it, having a voice, being able to represent what I thought was a very important advocacy voice and from the community on the commission. So I applied because I wanted to serve on the Planning Commission, and I was so honored to be appointed to serve. And I believe in public service to the point that the council asked me to serve. I wanted to fulfill my term, and over the course of the past year, I've determined that continuing to serve and continuing in a second term would be the best thing I could do for my city, as opposed to stepping aside. Because as you should already know from memos I've written and stances I've taken, the Planning Commission, for better or worse, is somewhat affected by politics, right? Just as your work is very much affected by politics. And I did not feel that if I stepped aside, given the current process, that it could guarantee that, the best outcome, my most desirable outcome, would even occur, right? So if anything, I felt that
the process politically would be disfavorable to an equitable outcome.
Potentially for a more equitable or diverse outcome, right? Potentially, given the policy. Now we have a different policy at play, so that's changed a lot. But I still think it holds true that I feel that the best thing I can do is to continue my service to the city, especially with the experience I bring forward and the thoughtfulness I bring forward, and my interest in creating creating a more opportunity for folks to come together rather than trying to parse us all out.
Are there people who fit your demographic who shouldn't continue to serve, who don't?
No, because I just don't tend to look at it that way as a plan with the Planning Commission. To me, it is more about knowledge and perspective of the city and lived experience, and that often has a lot to do with your ethnicity. So, but no, I don't think there's any. I wouldn't deign to say if there's any group or any segment that should or shouldn't be or is not represented enough right now, other than the Asian American community. I will point that out.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the panel? Okay, thanks, Peter. We're going to continue the interview today and on Monday, so it'll be a few days before we get back to you.
I appreciate that. If I could make one quick plug, Commissioner Mariel Caballero has been an absolutely invaluable member of the commission since she joined. I know she's up for reappointment. She was on a short term, but in her short time, she's already proven to be a really valuable asset to the commission. So regardless of what happens to me, I truly hope that you reappoint her, and not the least of which because we unanimously named her our chair for next year at our meeting on Wednesday night. So I really would put in a big plug for her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for the time.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
Okay, so next was supposed to be Shiloh Ballard, but I just got word with about a half an hour ago that Shiloh has pulled out and is not seeking reappointment. I did let the next person know, Carlin Black, that he will be interviewing early. He confirmed and he just signed on. So Carlin Black is your next applicant.
Okay, I think I'm here.
I think you're here too. Hello, welcome. Thank you for your interest in serving on the commission. Why don't you take a minute or two to describe your interest in serving and also what you believe you could bring and contribute to the Planning Commission, and then we'll jump into questions from our colleagues.
Okay, I actually got started on this many, many years ago, early in my career, when DuPont asked me to do a city plan for a new factory that they were doing back then. There was really very little city planning around except for Doxiatis. A lot of what you shouldn't do, but also there was some real planning. Doxiatis actually implemented Islamabad as a total planned greenfield city. So that was a very interesting experience that I had. It was a short job, if you will. But once I got interested in city planning, you can't just leave that and watch cities grow around you and say, wait a minute, this isn't right. So worked from there. I actually got started in San Jose a few years ago when I was invited to join the Stevens Creek Urban Village Advisory Group. That was a very interesting experience for me because I learned basically how those kinds of organizations work and what you can and can't accomplish in those organizations. I was sort of the advocate, if you will, of the urban villages at that point, and shortly thereafter got involved with Winchester Neighborhood Association, and follow on to that was a beginning of the Winchester was talking about a cap on 280 at Winchester, and I got involved with that committee doing some work on how that might work, coordinating with Caltrans and others to see if we could make that happen. And then a couple of years ago, when Catalyze San Jose or Catalyze Silicon Valley got organized, I was a founding member of that, and we've been working as they say in their what we're trying to do is make projects better. In other words, work with developers, not in an adversarial fashion that says, hey, you're too tall, or, you're casting shade on my backyard, but say, these are things you can do to make this development a much more interesting and much more livable development kind of thing. And that's about where I am right now. My interest in the Planning Commission would be in a sense, to be a voice for the 21st century city planning. I've had some rather unfortunate, disappointing experiences. Let's not say unfortunate, disappointing experiences with the Planning Commission, where projects that could have been a lot better were not encouraged to be better. Let's put it that way. And so that is basically what I'm hoping to do on the commission at this point, is to take a look at some of the latest ideas in city planning and see how they might apply to things that are going on in San Jose.
Thank you, Mr. Black. And thank you for your interest in serving, and thank you for all your service as a volunteer with the neighborhood advisory groups and the commission. Councilmember, Vice Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Carlin, for your willingness to serve. I have a high-level question for you. Can you provide me with your perspective on the role of the Planning Commission?
I hope, or put it this way, I would like to see the Planning Commission actually take a look at projects and work essentially as Catalyze SV does and say, okay, this is a project that we can go with, but let's see how we can make this project a little better, a little more livable, a little more beneficial to the city itself, rather than just to the developer and the people that are going to live there or work there. And I would hope that that's what the Planning Commission will evolve into. I haven't seen that a whole lot so far in terms of my interactions with the Planning Commission. I've been working with them, or I spoke up on a lot of projects. They seem to be pretty much, let's listen to the plan, listen to what the planners have to say and rubber stamp it. In one sense, that's one thing that you can do, but I think the Planning Commission should have a more interactive force with the planners.
Thank you. What unique skills, abilities, or perspective will you bring to the Planning Commission?
Well, as you may know, I tend to take a very large picture, or a very large look at what things could be, and not so much force them into that, but to make it feel like those are things that are possible. I think you remember that interesting large picture idea that I'm still promoting, and that is close off Kylie to clean up the Kylie-Saratoga mess. And obviously that would be a very long-term thing, but I think that's something that the Planning Commission should be. Those kinds of things should be in the purview of the planning commissioners.
Thank you, Carlin. And again, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Foley.
Thank you.
Okay, ¿qué quieren? Voy a ir a McDonald's. What do you want?
Okay, there we go. I didn't know if she was talking to me. Thank you, Mr. Black, for submitting an application and being willing to go through the interview session and consider an appointment to the Planning Commission. I have a question for you as it relates to the Catalyze SV, which is a great outreach group in helping communities negotiate with developers on getting the best projects in their areas. But how do you envision your role as a commissioner if an issue comes before you that is allowed under the general plan, but might be contrary to your organization, Catalyze SV? How would you remove yourself as a conflict of interest, or do you see a conflict of interest existing there?
I don't really see, obviously the Planning Commission has to deal with reality, and I have no problem in a sense dealing with reality. I might, in one sense, I think that as a commissioner, it would be a responsibility to, in a sense, recommend a project, but to say, or to approve a project or recommend approval, but nevertheless say these are things that should be considered to make the project a little better. but you know, whether or not Catalyze SV endorses the project or not, there are a lot of projects that they don't endorse that are okay projects, and I have no problem with okay projects. You know, if they're going to benefit the neighborhood and benefit the community, I would certainly recommend approval, even if they don't meet the Catalyze SV actually very high standards of support. So I would see no conflict in that at all. And that leads to a question: do I need to resign from Catalyze SV if I'm a commissioner?
Well, what do you think about that? Do you think you need to or no? Just to follow up on that, since you mentioned it, do you think that you need to resign as a member of Catalyze to be an effective commissioner? I don't have an opinion one way or the other. Since you threw it out there, I wanted to follow up.
Yeah, I don't see any conflict really, because you know, as I say, at Catalyze SV, we're trying to demand very high standards on all parts of a project. And, you know, politically and realistically, there are projects that aren't going to qualify that are going to have to be approved. So I would see no conflict in that, because the, you know, business is business. It's going to, you're going to have to do an awful lot of things that aren't perfect, because, you know, San Jose needs the development and needs the projects to come forward.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for applying.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Black, I just wanted to follow up with a slightly different conflict question.
Yeah.
Let's say that there's a situation where the general plan dictates that a land use should be X. Applicant comes in and says it should be Y. And you're looking at the situation and you kind of agree with the applicant. And maybe even Catalyze SV agrees with the applicant. But there's a conflict there between your views and the general plans. How do you resolve that conflict?
Well, there just was a situation just like that, in which case the developer of the trailer park near Winchester decided that he didn't like the general plan, and so he applied for an exemption from the general plan, and the Planning Commission and Council ultimately approved that. I spoke up rather strongly in council against that, because I think the general plan should in general be followed, because a lot of thought went into the general plan to make San Jose a better city. And as a commissioner, I could certainly agree with a good project that is not in accordance with a general plan, but I would look at that with a very jaundiced eye.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. And then last question I have is, you know, you've obviously been involved in neighborhood association and different planning efforts. When you come aboard with the commission, what problem or problems do you think you can help address for our city? What are the sort of big problems you think that your role would really be helpful?
I think that since the very beginning, as I say, trying to plan a greenfield city, I tend to look at a bigger picture than just a project. So that how is this project going to fit in and contribute to the betterment of San Jose? And I would hope that that is the, obviously they're going to be, it's a political position. I'm not going to win them all, but there are situations where I think that some of those considerations should be brought up and looked at. Let's put it that way. Not necessarily approved, but looked at.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Any other questions from my colleagues? Well, Mr. Black, thank you so much for your continued volunteer work in the community and your willingness to serve on the Planning Commission. We're going to interview folks today and on Monday, so it'll take us a few days to get back to you. But again, really appreciate your willingness to apply.
All right. Well, thank you very much
Thank you, sir.
for the opportunity. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tony. Justin is your next interviewee, and he is already on the call.
Great. Welcome. Mr. Hi, I'm going to mispronounce your last name. Is it?
No worries.
Could you pronounce your last name for us, Justin?
Sure. My name is Justin Lardenois.
Lardenois. Okay, I definitely wasn't going to get that one right. Thank you, Mr. Lardenois. Hey, I appreciate your willingness to serve and your the time that it takes just to get through the application process. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
The way we do this typically is we ask applicants just to describe their interest in serving, what they think they can bring to the commission, how they can play a positive role on the commission. Do that for a couple minutes, and then we'll go to the council for questions.
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the council. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in West San Jose. When I was growing up, my parents worked in food service for a lot of my childhood and experienced housing insecurity and spent a lot of time riding public transportation. I lived in Santa Cruz for a few years, and then came back to San Jose after college for work. And San Jose has really given me all I have. Since I've been back, I've become a board member of the District 1 Leadership Group. Vice Mayor Jones appointed me to the Housing Commission in 2018. And during my work on the Housing Commission, the general plan is something that comes up from time to time, and that's really what sparked my interest in the Planning Commission. And I'm really interested and excited about the opportunity to work more directly with the general plan and dig into the planning process. And also just, again, interested in San Jose's growth and future and how we get there. In terms of perspective, I'm a renter, though I do hope to be a homeowner someday. I'm 26, so I'm a bit younger than anyone else on the commission. And I'd be the only member of the LGBT community to be on the commission. And I live still in West San Jose, District 1, which hasn't had a commissioner since Commissioner Vora resigned. And I think that's important because San Jose is slated for a lot of development and growth in the near future. I think we have 8 urban villages. So that's just a general overview of me and my interest.
I'm sorry, when did you say the last District 1 commissioner? Who was that?
I believe it was Commissioner Vora.
Okay, right.
I could be wrong, but
No,
that
it
was
was Namrata Vora.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Again, thank you again for your interest. Let's jump in with the District 1 representative, Vice Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Justin, for your willingness to serve. I want to start off with a high-level question. Can you provide me with your perspective on what the Planning Commission's role is?
Sure. So, I mean, in general, I see the Planning Commission, to make an analogy, as being a, how do I put this? Like more of a judicial role than a legislative role. It's not the Planning Commission's job to make policy. It's the Planning Commission's job to hear staff recommendations, hear project, and then make a decision based on whether the project follows the general plan or not. And then ultimately that becomes a recommendation to City Council. And how do I put that? I would say in addition to that, having that really up or down, like, does it follow the policy or not? I think it's important for planning commissioners to ask insightful questions, both of developers, of the community, and really get that information on the record so that that's available when council hears a project. And then, of course, there's the minority of issues like permits and I believe form-based planning, where the planning commission does have the final authority. And so it's important for commissioners to respect the weight of that authority.
Great, thank you. What unique skills, abilities, perspective do you bring to the Planning Commission, or would you bring to the Planning Commission?
Sure. So I think some elements of my background that I spoke to earlier, particularly on the Housing Commission, I think being a member of the LGBT community has helped provide perspective. Like, we were having a discussion late last year about affordable housing for families, and some other commissioners had to remind them a family doesn't always mean a man, a woman, and their biological children, and having that picture was important in that discussion. And I think more generally, being on the Housing Commission has given me a very holistic view of what happens when you build housing and the policies around it, and after it's built, in the years and decades afterwards, how it influences the community. And then also, I think living in District 1 and living near, being involved in neighborhood associations and seeing the impact on other communities around the district, because I think we're surrounded by 4 other cities, or 5 if you count the rest of San Jose. And because historically we've been the largest city and a regional leader, there's a responsibility that San Jose has in setting an example for those other cities, particularly on planning and land use issues.
Great. And then my last question, Justin, is you're employed by Google. And as we all know, there's going to be a lot of decisions that are going to be made in the Planning Commission around Google projects that you would be required to recuse yourself. So understanding the volume of work and projects that are going to be coming before the Planning Commission, and knowing that you would have to recuse yourself, do you feel that that would be have a negative impact on your ability to serve on the Planning Commission?
Thank you for that question, and I apologize. I meant to bring that up in my introduction, but I forgot to. Yeah, so I, of course, will recuse myself on anything Google related, and any additional advice the city attorney has, I'll follow. I don't think that'll have a large negative impact on my ability to serve, because Google is far from the only entity that has, is doing things in San Jose and will have things coming before the Planning Commission. So while I will have to sit out on those votes, I'll be able to fully participate in everything else the commission does, and I don't think it's going to be a major issue. Yeah, that's my take on that.
Great. Thank you. And again, Justin, thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Foley.
Well, the vice mayor asked my conflict of interest question, so I'll just ask another question that I have, which is, Justin, where do you see yourself 3 or 4 years from now?
Thank you, Councilmember. So, well, ideally on the Planning Commission. I mean, I guess there's the possibility that it might not be the case if I get the shorter term and then don't get reappointed after. But really, I mean, like I said, West San Jose has been a big part of my life. I mean, I've been here on and off for about 15 years now. And I would say in 3 or 4 years, I'll still be in West San Jose. I'll, still be involved in the community in any way I can. So I've got roots here and I'm here to stay.
Great, thank you. That's
Councilmember Arenas.
Thank you. Thank you for applying, Justin, to the Planning Commission. I know that you were already serving in the Housing Development Commission, and so they've already asked you about you already recognize that you would only be able to serve in one commission.
Yes.
And so, one of my questions was, how do you feel that the Housing and Community Development Commission has prepared you or has created the interests for you to apply to today's planning commission?
Sure. Thank you, council member. So I think, well, the biggest thing is the Housing Commission has just provided me with a lot of background on just how housing policy works in the city of San Jose. Those were not things I understood well before I came to the commission. And so thank you, Vice Mayor Jones, for taking a chance on me. I really appreciate that. And how do I put this? I think it's also given me an opportunity to really get a taste of what it's like to have to be making a decision when you have passionate disagreement from different parties. And again, sorry, I mentioned you so much, Vice Mayor. When he appointed me to the commission, he said, the most important thing is listening, not coming in with an ideology, not having a bias for one side or the other, but considering the policy and listening to all perspectives and making a considered decision. Now, of course, it's much less subjective on the planning commission. We have to make decisions based on the general plan, but that definitely at least influences how I approach things. And then also, I think that pretty much wraps that up. Do you have any other elements to that question, council member?
Oh, sure. No, listen, I appreciate anytime you bring up Vice Mayor Jones. That's always a plus in my book. So I appreciate that. And you should continue to mention him. So the other question I had, and I know that others have answered this question that I'm posing about equity, and do you believe that equity should be considered as a factor in your decision-making process as a planning commissioner? And I get that most of what you're discussing has kind of already been baked in. Although there always could be additional community engagement. So I just wonder, I know that you mentioned yourself that you are a member of the LGBTQ community, and understanding the importance of equity. I wonder if you would just give me your perspective of how you would incorporate equity into your decision-making process as a planning commissioner.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier that it's important to, ask insightful questions on the planning commission and have that go into the record, regardless of whether that impacts the vote or not. And so equity is certainly a big part of that. And just considering both historically and in the present, how we make land use decisions has a big impact on people's lives and whether we have equitable outcomes or not. And so that's a big part of that. Also, I know that equity has been a big topic of discussion on the council recently in terms of, the recently adopted equity budget and the equity pledge. And to the extent that influences city policy, I think that also provides opportunities in that regard. So,
thank you. I think it's important to. I'm glad that you brought up and acknowledge that we've been discussing some really heavy-duty issues on council, and part of it is our own path and our own recognition in undoing some of what our past policies have set up for our communities, but also because there was a level of awareness, I think, in our community to walk within those lines of equity, or maybe be able to apply equity to all aspects of our lives. And so I appreciate that you brought that forward. And I appreciate your service as a commissioner. I don't know that I have any additional questions, I think you have a great experience with a housing and development commissioner that helps you prepare and understand some of the issues that are happening currently with our community. And so I value that piece. And I think that is a great nexus, is a great place to start before you become a planning commissioner. So thank you, Justin, for your interest. Thank you for your application and all the process that you've gone through so far. And if you mention Vice Mayor, once again, it's another positive point in my book. All right.
Thank you, Council
Thank
Member.
you.
Sir, can I ask, what do you least like about Vice Mayor Jones?
Oh my
You don't have to answer that question. Councilmember Davis has the next question, but she.
Thank you for serving on the Housing Commission, and thank you for your application to the Planning Commission. So as a housing commissioner, you know that we have a severe shortage in the Bay Area when it comes to housing. I don't know how much you have dealt with on HCDC, the issue in San Jose having a low jobs to employed resident ratio. But those are two sort of competing issues that we deal with on council on a regular basis. And I'm wondering how you would balance those things as a planning commissioner.
Sure. And Mr. Mayor, I don't mind answering the question. I go to a lot of public events and see the Vice Mayor speak a lot, so I've heard the same jokes quite a few times, but I am also guilty of doing that myself.
Question. Let me answer.
And Councilmember Davis, to answer your question. So yeah, the jobs housing imbalance is certainly a big issue, and I think maybe not as obvious why it's an issue as a housing crisis, but of course, jobs tend to generate revenue for the city, whereas adding additional residents is generally a net cost. And many of the smaller cities in our area have the opposite problem, though I would argue that's because they've not done their part in building housing. So it's a long-standing problem. I mean, I talked about like the history of how San Jose grew and how Dutch Hammond, really focused on sprawl in the 50s and 60s. But thankfully, we do have a general plan that you all have worked on that has guiding philosophy for that and aiming towards that goal of 1.1 jobs per resident. And to the extent that I've been able to work with that on the Housing Commission, I think urban villages are a really big part of that strategy in terms of building communities where people can live a significant portion of their life within walking distance, work, play, housing, and then also how public transit plays into that. And I think the general plan even says something about importing residents from other communities, which is, I never heard it put that way, but I mean, again, that's what a lot of the smaller cities do and why they have such a high ratio. But I think there's a big question mark here in terms of how the lasting impact that the pandemic will have after it's over, because many workers are working from home now. And I guess you could argue that those people do live and work in San Jose now. So I don't know if that's going to last when the crisis is over, but definitely something that I'm curious about. And to the very least, it gives much more credibility to the idea of urban villages and walkability.
For sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a couple questions. Thanks for your interest in really going through this lengthy process. I know it's a lot of time. One is, a lot of folks join commissions, as I'm sure you were thinking when you joined the Housing Commission, hey, there's a particular problem I want to solve. Maybe it's around affordable housing, for example. What are the problems you think you want to address as a planning commissioner? What do you think are the most important problems?
Sure. So in addition to things I've already spoken about in previous answers, I think the biggest part of it is making people feel heard in the process. And I know that city staff is currently working on, or I don't know if it's city staff or a contractor, but working on retrofitting our public engagement process. So I'm hoping that addresses this problem as well. But having been involved in neighborhood groups, I've seen a lot of those conversations between developers and residents, and how it can go really well, and how sometimes it is just completely adversarial. And of course, that's a much bigger process, and there's only so much we can do on the Planning Commission. But I think going back to what I was saying about listening to people and about asking important questions, I think that really goes a long way in making people who come before the Planning Commission feel like it's not just a rubber stamp, and it actually is part of our democratic process.
Thank you. That's good insight. The other question I wanted to ask you really had to do with the conflicts that inevitably come up as a planning commissioner. You'll see there'll be projects where a general plan clearly designates the land use should be X. The applicant wants the land use to be Y or some other element, right? That conflicts with the general plan.
Sure.
You think about it, and you've been around neighborhood meetings and spent time certainly on the housing commission, and think, well, look, I think the applicant's right and the general plan's wrong. How do you wrestle with that conflict between your beliefs and the general plan's dictates?
Sure. So, well, if I was a planning commissioner, the general plan would be my Bible. So, my yes no vote would be based on what's in the general plan and whether the project aligns with it or not. But everything else you talked about are things that I would be allowed to say on the dais, and also, I mean, if it's really something where the commission feels that, hey, what this developer wants to do is ideal, even if it's not allowed by the general plan, we can make that as a recommendation to the council, because the council does have the authority to override the general plan or amend it. So as in the advisory function of the commission, we can certainly say that.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, well, Justin, thank you for taking the time, and appreciate your continued service on the Housing Commission, your willingness to serve even more hours, because this is a lot more hours, I know. The process is going to continue on Monday. We're going to be interviewing some folks then, and so we won't get back to you for a few days, but we will get back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and everyone for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Hi, this is Tony. Your last interviewee cannot make it due to the accelerated, with the one candidate dropping out and everything got accelerated.
Okay.
So we're going to push her to Monday.
Okay.
You guys are done for today. I know several of you have things to do this evening.
So we'll have 8 candidates on Monday.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. All right, well, thanks, everybody. Everybody have a great week. Oh, wait a minute. We do have one person from the public who'd like to speak, so let's go to public comment. Blair.
Hello, I think I'm going to try a new way of saying, can you hear me? I think I'm going to say from now on, I'm going to try speaking, and if there's a problem, please speak up.
Will do.
Thank you. Thank you. This was a very informative process for me today. It was enjoyable. I was allowed to just kind of sit and think. And so thank you. Good luck in how you will be choosing your candidates. And as I said in meetings this past week, I hope with so many digital inclusion issues that's a part of the planning process. I hope you will be considering how the persons can be up to date on civil protections and civil rights, and the most accountable, updated on the most accountable practices that are around at this time. And I guess that's about all. Thank you very much for the meeting.
Thank you, sir. Matt, welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. Thanks for taking my comment. My name is Matt Gustafson. I'm a resident of District 3. I want to thank the Council for the insightful questions that came today. It was really revealing. I think we learned a lot about the candidates, particularly the conversations around equity and privilege, and what it looks like to center communities that have not been historically represented on the Planning Commission. I know this is like a big issue, particularly after all the drama that happened last year. I'll share that I am a straight white man, and I'm a homeowner in San Jose. So I think about these things a lot, like Commissioner Allen. And so I just want to flag a few things if we're really thinking about equity that it's worth considering in terms of the Planning Commission composition. A few stats, one from the Bay Area Equity Atlas cites that 26% of San Jose's population is white, but 53% of its elected officials are white. Of the past 27 planning commissioners, 56% have been white. So that's like double the representation of the percentage of the population. So I hope that the council can consider these things as we're considering what does it look like to have a representative planning commission. The other comment I'd like to make is just briefly about the Alum Rock Urban Village Plan in East San Jose is the only urban village plan where planning commissioners actually have the final say on a lot of the developments that happen in there. So it really does matter. Like there is a significant amount of power that is unique in a very like low income part of town, which has experienced like historic systemic oppression and underinvestment. So those are just a couple of things that I hope we can consider as we think about these appointments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Andrea?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak during public comment. My name is Andrea Portillo. I'm a District 5 resident here in San Jose. And I think we've learned a lot today from the candidates that we've heard. And like Matt, I would just like to reiterate how important it is for council to really choose wisely when we're thinking about candidates, right? We've heard a lot of great questions, especially around equity, the importance of affordable housing. And so those are the things that I think this commission should really have a focus in moving forward. And I think just as a District 5 resident, I think, this is a historical time, if that's what we would like to call it. And we've seen how important both representation is. And, in light of COVID and in light of the Black Lives Matter demonstrations that we've seen, we know how important it is to have representation and why we need to address some of the systemic inequities that we've been facing, specifically on the east side of San Jose. And so I just urge you guys to really, take all of that in mind and really choose, when you're thinking of choosing a candidate, really choose a candidate that demonstrates and has a value for racial equity in planning decisions, and who understands the negative impacts that land use, zoning, and gentrification have had, specifically on the east side. Somebody that has lived and working experience working with communities that are marginalized by oppressive systems, as well as somebody who demonstrates a really great track record for advocating for communities that are marginalized by oppressive systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Erica, welcome.
Yes, hi. I would just like to address something that's not on the agenda. I would like to address the reopening of hair salons and the hardship it has caused for my business and livelihood. How do you feel about a haircut? It makes everyone feel good about themselves when they look good. It's not only a matter of hygiene for some, it can also affect their mental health. Salons are clean and safe environments. Licensed cosmetologists had to complete 1,600 hours in client safety, disinfection, and sanitation training. People are leaving the county to get service, which in turn is equally lost tax revenue for the duration of time Santa Clara County remains closed. I have been out of work for over 3 months, and there still has been no tentative hair salon reopening date announced in Santa Clara County. I am losing customers to neighboring Bay Area counties. Will you address the Santa Clara County Health Department as a city and help resolve this issue by working with them to come up with an estimated Phase 3 reopening date? We should be following the California state timeline, given we meet all the health metrics. We cannot go any longer without a projected reopening date. Hair salons and other small businesses are facing permanent closure.
Erica?
Thank you.
Just so you know, the meeting with the county is scheduled for Monday morning at 9 a.m. So certainly county officials will be there then. And I'm sure they'd be very interested in that, as we are. Unfortunately, we don't have any authority. So, okay, I think our final speaker is the last numbers 3311. Welcome.
Hi, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My topic is not necessarily part of the discussion today as far as planning, but I feel like it is a very important topic, and that is due to the trend of the destruction of the statues, which has recently plagued our nation. I would like to start up a dialogue to address official and respectful temporary removal of our city's statues and monuments to help preserve them until this nation decides what they want to do. Furthermore, I would also like to express that I do oppose the proposal against the use of projectiles during demonstrations. I believe that if the police cannot use the tools to dispense a crowd, that the police will be forced to physically arrest. And I believe that this can lead to more confrontation and injuries on both the police and the side of the protesters. Please allow the police to use dispersing projectiles. Every protester and police wants to go home safely at the end of the day, and disbursement is necessary for a peaceful solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Olivia, welcome.
Yes, hi. Before we start, though, I am going to read a statement from one of our members for Vecinos Activos that she can make because she's working, but it's in Spanish, okay?
Okay.
Buenos días, mi nombre es Zulem Ábalos y yo soy miembro de la comunidad con el grupo de vecinos activos con Somos Mayfair. La razón que me involucré es porque en las reuniones de vecinos analizamos y buscamos soluciones a las dificultades que tenemos en la comunidad para encontrar viviendas asequibles por los altos costos de vivir aquí en San José. Parte de nuestro trabajo es participar en el desarrollo del vecindario y nos interesamos cuando llegan nuevas compañías que quieren construir en nuestras áreas. La Comisión de Planificación de San José es muy importante porque toma decisiones que nos puede afectar. ¿Cuántas viviendas asequibles van a construir para nuestras familias? Si va a haber parques para espacios abiertos, cómo va a cambiar el tráfico y estacionamientos en nuestros vecindarios, etcétera. La comisión debe representar los diferentes distritos de San José, debe representar las diferentes razas de la población de San José, debe representar la voz de toda la comunidad que es en San José. Queremos que ustedes como concejales y alcalde tomen en cuenta a la comunidad y que se aseguren que la comisión tenga todas las voces y puntos de vista en todo San José. Esperemos que elijan individuos que quieran proveer un proceso justo y digno, donde la gente de la comunidad tenga una voz en el proceso de desarrollar los vecindarios de San José. Do you want me to say, kind of translate in English, or will you guys be okay with that?
If you could do so, yes, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try, okay? Good evening, my name is Zulema Ábalos, and I'm a member at Vecinos Activos from Somos Mayfair. The reason that I got involved in Vecinos Activos is because in Vecinos Activos, we analyze and we look for solutions to the difficulties that we have here in our community, to find ways to do affordable houses here in San Jose. Part of our job is participating in the development of the neighborhood, and we're interested when new businesses, new developers want to come and develop here in the area. The Planning Commission in San Jose is very important because it takes decisions that would affect our housing, accessible housing, because we want to see more accessible housing here for our families. There should be parks, open spaces. Also, how would that affect traffic and parking, etc.? The Planning Commission should represent the different districts of San Jose. It should represent the different ethnicities of San Jose. It should represent the voices of all communities from San Jose. We want that you guys, the council members, take the voice of the community, and they make sure that the commission has the voices and Voices of San Jose. We really hope that you guys will pick individuals, the ones who provide this process, make the process be just, where the community has a voice in the process of the developers and the developments in the neighborhoods of San Jose. I hope I said it right.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thanks.
Maria, welcome.
Hi, Mayor and council members. Thank you. My name is Maria Martinez, and also I'm member in Somos Mayfair. I'm coordinating Somos Mayfair with the group de Vecinos Activos, and I live in District 5. As was, I echoed what Olivia and my leader said. As a resident in Mayfair, we asking for people that really represent our community. So we need the people that they really take care for our people, for our community. They taking a good decision, the equity in our district. We had a lot of issues, and then hopefully for the next time in the Monday, you have translation for our people, because this is a huge opportunity for the people they meet. Who is the chair? Who is the chair that decide? Who is the chair who decide this construction in San Jose? So who is the person that we contact? But if you don't have any in Spanish translation for our people, mostly the people they don't know. And that's why they had the conflict with the community when they see one construction. So please, for the next time, hopefully Monday, you have translation for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And I'll just check in with Tony. Tony, would there be any difficulty making sure we have a Spanish translator for tomorrow or Monday afternoon?
I will work on it. I'll try my best.
Great, thank
you. Usually need a little extra notice, but I'll do my best.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.